Hey friends, so I am cosplaying as a 1962 version of Midge for this Secret Invasion episode 5 review.
It's Midge, Mattel's marvelous new teenage doll.
I am at San Diego Comic-Con, so I am on location to do this review, but I still wanted to get it out to you. I landed this morning and I watched Secret Invasion episode 5 on the plane on my iPad, and I have thoughts, so without further ado, let's dive into it. And if you want to see more of my adventures from San Diego Comic-Con and this full cosplay, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because I will be posting some vlogs from SDCC. Episode 5, Secret Invasion. The plot thickens. So the one thing I kind of want to say about this episode and the takeaway that I sort of had was that although I am really loving Secret Invasion, if you've watched my other reviews, you know this, I did want to say that this episode was not the strongest for me. Episode 4 so far has been my favorite, and this episode, honestly, I don't know if it's because it was super early in the morning when I was watching it, but it kind of just felt meh. Ugh, I don't like saying that, but it's true. It just felt kind of meh. And I think the reason for that is that there are a lot of cool relationship things still building, but it doesn't really feel to me like a lot happens in this episode. And I think it's an episode where a lot more of what's happening is about kind of the action. Now, I know this is a spy show, so I should be super here for the action. And last episode I was, but this episode, the action just kind of felt a bit lackluster. And honestly, some things just felt a little bit wonky to me with what's going on in terms of the story beats. Let's talk a little bit about that. Actually, before we talk about that, let me talk about some of the things that I did like before I get into that. So some of the things that I actually really did like, I'm still loving Samuel L. Jackson in this. I'm still loving Olivia Colman in this. And them together also, again, is fabulous. I really enjoyed the scene between Fury and Rhodey, Skrull Rhodey, which obviously not really Rhodey, but that scene was really great. And it's the scene where basically Fury is guarding the president. So in the last episode, he saved the president's life. He takes the president to the hospital and he tells the president, even though he's completely out of it, so we don't know if he heard him, but he warns him that basically he can't trust Rhodes because he's a Skrull, and that he shouldn't be trusted. Don't listen to what Rhodes is saying because Skrull. Then he decides he's going to guard the president and not let anyone else through. So when Rhodey arrives on scene, Skrull Rhodey, he basically says to Fury, like, you have to leave, like, thank you for your service, but like, you're dismissed. But Fury obviously knows at this point that Rhodes is a Skrull and basically threatens his life. And then they have this little tete-a-tete where Rhodes explains if Fury tries to do anything, how bad it will be for him, and how he's already released the footage of Fury killing Maria Hill, which wasn't actually Fury, it was Gravik, we know this. And that whole bit between them, that threat, that intimidation, I loved it. I thought it was so fabulous. The other scene that I really loved in this was I actually really loved Gaia and Priscilla. Priscilla, for those that don't remember, Priscilla Fury is actually Nick Fury's wife. We found out that she was actually a Skrull. He knows she was a Skrull, and yeah, she was one of the agents that was working for him, and then they kind of fell in love, except she also adopted the perfect sort of identity to fall in love with Fury. So she basically handpicked this woman and saw her as someone Fury could fall in love with, because the whole time she's kind of been working for Gravik, and this was all kind of part of that plan. But she also does seem to genuinely love Fury. One, I gotta say, I still really love their relationship, and I would love to see a Fury show where we get like a flashback to what their romance was like, because I just feel like they're so interesting together and so weird, and I love it. But the other thing is that I just really loved the scene between Gaia and Priscilla. Even though I do think Priscilla staying at home to wait to face her executioners makes zero sense. Like, I understand that she loves her home, but Like, girl, like, don't stay there. Like, get out of there. Like, what are you thinking? But the good news is that because of this, we do get a really great scene where Fury and Gaia have a conversation before this, and Fury basically says for Talos, who Gaia is going to bury because he died in the last episode, she should go to Priscilla because Priscilla is a Skrull and she knows the rights. So Gaia does go to Priscilla, who's at home, waiting for people to come get rid of her. They get attacked, they fight off those people, and Priscilla does help her with the burning. But really it's just their on-screen like chemistry together and the way they play off of each other, and this idea of Gaia being this young, sort of just reckless character who is very like jaded about the world and almost like is angry, versus Priscilla, who's lived in it for a long time and has this wisdom and sort of understanding a little bit more of how things work. And that sort of play of the youthful sort of anger, I guess, versus the patient wisdom that we see in these two characters and the way they play off each other, that I thought was really compelling and really interesting. And I'm glad we got to see that. So other than Priscilla staying at home, there were just a few things that, I don't know, this episode just felt kind of mid for me, but I also acknowledge that it's setting up a lot of stuff. The other thing that I really didn't like, but I think there's more to this, and I think we're gonna hopefully see it in episode 6, I'm hoping, is that Fury is threatened by Gravik. So obviously Gravik's plan went off the rails, but Gravik doesn't care because he's like, I have a backup plan. And that is to basically get the Americans to attack us, to attack New Skrullos, through sort of making them think that we're working with the Russians, or we're at least in Russia, so they'll basically blow us up, and then that will create an incident with Russia because we're in Russia. That's his plan. And he tells Fury about this on a phone call and says that what he wants is something called the Harvest. So the Harvest is basically Fury after the battle for Earth between Thanos in Endgame. After that battle, there was just blood from all heroes, like all over the place. Even apparently Carol Danvers, they insert in there. I think they kind of had to insert that line because I don't know if we actually see Carol bleed in that fight. I have to go back and watch it, but I feel like we don't. So apparently there was just little samples of blood lying around everywhere on this battlefield that could just be mined. How they know who's what's blood, and there's a lot of questions, but comics, so that's fine. I can accept that the Harvest exists. What I do not accept is that Fury decides he is going to give the Harvest to Gravik because that's what Gravik wants, and he has to protect Earth. But also to give Gravik the Harvest would mean that the Super Skrulls now can also have the powers of all the Avengers and all superheroes that were in that fight. Seems like a really bad idea. So I can't imagine that's his real plan, but that's what we're told his plan is in this episode. I really didn't like that. And there was one other thing I really wasn't a fan of, and that's when, it's very minor, but basically during this episode as well, people start to turn on Gravik, which one, I feel like the Skrulls turning on Gravik feels kind of sudden, because up until this point and what happened with last episode, I feel like Gravik has actually been doing a pretty good job of leading the Skrulls. He does demand like utmost loyalty, and he doesn't always let people know about his plans, which isn't great. But other than that, he's been doing, I think, a pretty good job, and everyone seemed pretty on board, or at least they were muscled into being on board, and then they kind of came around to it. We haven't seen a ton of resistance. We saw that one woman early on, one of the Skrulls who was undercover. She attempted to resist, but most people seem pretty chill with him. And then all of a sudden, there's like a mutiny that happens that Beto's leading, or Beto, I think. Beto. It's one of the two. Beto. Let me know in the comments. I forget. But he leads this attack. That part I was kind of fine with. I feel like he at least kind of makes sense. But then everyone's turning on Gravik. And before this even happens, there's a man that also calls him out. And the man says, hey, G, because G is short for Gravik. That's the nickname he decided to give to Gravik. I just really didn't like that. I don't know why, it just felt so weirdly casual and weirdly like, look at us, we're being trendy, we call him G. Just call him Gravik. Like, why are you calling him G? What is that? Is that supposed to show that person's familiar with him? I'm just not sure why it was worded like that in the script. Anyways, overall, I did find this episode to be pretty mid, but I am excited to see what Fury has up his sleeve in episode 6 because I think it's more than what we're being led to believe. And I hope it is, because if it's not, I might be disappointed. And he's got the eye patch back, baby, so slap on that eye patch and get ready for episode 6, the final episode, next week. All right, that's all I got, friends. I'll see you later. I'm gonna go do some San Diego Comic-Con things, and until next time, stay nerdy.